Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar called The Benefits of Being a CFA Charter Holder and the Outlook for 2024. My name is Paul Rebolledo. I'm the CEO of Tandem Finance, and I have the pleasure to introduce Rob Langrick. Rob is the General Manager of the CFA Program. Previously, he led the Bloomberg's Financial Division, the Bloomberg's Financial Education Division, and he holds an MBA from Tech School of Business at Dartmouth. And also, he previously began his career as a sell-side analyst, equity research in London, and also he worked into a private equity diligence unit of Bain & Company in New York City. Well, welcome, Rob, and please go ahead with your presentation.
Perfect. Thanks for the introduction, Paul, and welcome everybody to this presentation. I'm very honored to be here talking about the CFA program this evening from Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C. at the headquarters, near the headquarters of CFA Institute. So I'm going to share my screen briefly, Paul. I'm going to go ahead and do that to bring up the presentation here. So if I just go to the PowerPoint, here we go. Perfect. So Paul asked me to talk about the benefits of being a CFA charter holder. I'll talk for 20, 25 minutes, so I keep it brief. And then I think we're going to questions. So I think there's a chat. You can put questions in as we go. So I'll go pretty quick. So in terms of who we are, CFA Institute, we offer many education courses, credentials such as CFA Program, that's our flagship, CIPM, which is all about performance measurement, so middle office function. And then we have many certificates, things like ESG investing, climate, data science, and so on and so forth, private markets. I'm going to focus today, though, on the main marquee, the flagship product, the CFA Program. And I'm going to answer kind of 4 questions quickly, which are here, which is who's got the CFA charter? What kind of professionals? Why did they start doing the CFA program when they began? What do we cover in the CFA program? And how can you take the CFA program yourself? What I'll then do to end, I'll talk briefly about the enhancements we've just made to CFA program. We made a lot of great enhancements, and I'll briefly touch upon those as well. So first of all, who's got the CFA charter? Pretty much any top employer you can think of has got many CFA charter holders. And in fact, here's a list. It goes across the sell side, buy side, insurance, accounting, and so on. But let me show you real quick a list. We have a league table actually of sorts here, which we can give the link to you. Shows you where CFA charter holders work. So the firm with the most CFA charter holders in the world is UBS. We're just under 2,500. JP Morgan, 2,200, Royal Bank of Canada, 2,000, Bank of America, 1,600, and so on. And so here there's a list which shows you the kind of order of the firms with the most CFA charter holders around the world. It shows all firms down here. So definitely we'll share this link with you. And so you can get a sense just for how ubiquitous and how popular the CFA charter is by looking at this list. So in terms of the jobs people do, though, here's a separate chart which shows that. You can see all across the financial universe, you have CFA charter holders. So we're looking here, top right's the sell side. So people like sell side equity research analysts or sales, risk, strategists, economists, lots of different roles on the sell side have the CFA charter. On the buy side, that's the kind of the core of it. So the most popular job for CFA charter holders is portfolio manager. And then private wealth is very popular as well here, you can see up in the top left. We have lots of company insiders have got the CFAs, or CEOs, CFOs, private equity, general partner firms, corporate and strategy in corporations, and then lots of advisors as well, people doing corporate finance or accounting. And I'll share these slides with Paul so he can distribute them, by the way, so you can take a look. But it
Rob,
really...
Rob, I'm sorry. Would you please share your slides in a presentation mode?
Sure, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you.
There we go. And I'll also share with them, Paul, so you can distribute them afterwards as well. So you can see this is how there are 200,000 members now, actually, but this is roughly how it breaks down. And so clearly you can see people with the CFA charter do pretty much any and every job role in finance, basically. So we really are a foundational product that covers the basics. And as such, it's got a lot of career optionality. So if you do the CFA program, many different doors open to you in finance. Okay, so why did these 200,000 people begin the CFA program? I'll explain that with data and also tell my own story as well briefly. So I spoke to just over 300 charter holders in the year 2020 when I ascended to this role leading the CFA program, and I interviewed them with my notepad. And I didn't ask them a survey necessarily. I asked them to explain in their own words why did they begin the CFA program when they began. And I took some great notes, and then I went back to the office and I sort of synthesized it into buckets. And here's the answer. So the number one reason people do it is to signal to employers, essentially, to differentiate themselves from other people in the job market. Also, value for money is a big thing as well. So we are comparable to a master's program according to the benchmarking agencies, which is pretty big because we're a master's program are comparable. We give you letters after your name, and yet we're only a few thousand US dollars, and you don't need to leave your job in order to study for CFA. So we think it's a really compelling value proposition, in particular compared to things like MBA or Masters in Finance. That's another big reason. When you talk to candidates of the CFA program, the number one reason they give when they're studying for it is to acquire more knowledge. So it's a 9,000-page curriculum. It covers pretty much every asset class out there and lots of different job roles, as you saw. And so as you're a candidate, you learn so much. And finance is a very knowledge-intensive domain. And so that's really a key reason people do it as well when they're candidates. Here's why I did it. And you'll find many people give the same answer here. I was an equity research analyst, as you heard from Paul, in London, doing sell-side equity research, looking at telecom companies. And whatever job role you go into in finance, you're always going to a very narrow niche. Okay, so I was equity research. I wasn't doing fixed income research. I wasn't doing commodities and so on, or currencies. But the reality is it's a cross-asset world. So you have to cover all the different asset classes to really understand the basics of each asset class, actually. So if you're an equity analyst, for instance, you must understand the yield curve and what's happening with interest rates, as that's what you're using to value equities. But what you find is, I was at HSBC in London, they're not going to teach you. The equities department is not going to teach you how the fixed income universe works, basically. And so the CFA program is an excellent place to come and learn all the different asset classes, the basics, things you actually need to know to perform, in my case, as an equity analyst. So that's a really valuable thing you get from the CFA program. You master all the basics across the asset classes. Okay, so what do we cover? Clearly, we cover all the asset classes. That's what I just told you. But we do more than just covering asset classes. So we're really targeting the early career professionals. We're generalists, meaning we're cross-asset, we cross lots of different job roles. And so it's really well suited to people either at undergraduate or recent undergrads, people who just graduated from university. It's very relevant to them. We're also global. So we're not, let's say, just focused on the US markets at all. Practice-based is really important. So you can get lots of different finance textbooks looking at things like fixed income, things like derivatives and so on. But what you find is the questions in those books are not practice-oriented. So every single one of the questions on each of the 3 CFA exams is around a professional scenario. So we're not an academic program, we're a practice-based program. And also we talk to lots of investors around the world to make sure we're covering all the right things, all the new things happening on Wall Street, to make sure we cover that. So, for example, you may have seen last week that they launched crypto ETFs here in the USA, which is causing a lot of stir around the world, actually. We're going to cover that because clearly clients might ask people about what they think about crypto ETFs or think about putting them in their portfolio. And so whatever practice does, we do. And so we always update the curriculum every year to make sure we cover practice. In terms of the mix of topics to study on each exam, here's the mix. So you'll see at level 1, we cover all the 10 kind of knowledge domains fairly evenly, actually. You'll notice ethics is at the top there. It's always a double-digit % coverage of each of the 3 levels. Ethics is at the core of what we do, And now, in particular, as private wealth and being a fiduciary becomes more and more important, clearly the ethics distinguishes the CFA program, I'd say, compared to alternatives. You'll notice that as you get onto level 3, things get very big in portfolio management, because that's really the asset class kind of centric level, is level 3 there, when you specialize as an asset manager of different types, essentially. So that's the mix of topics you need to master on the exam itself. And the key thing to recognize about the CFA program is really since 1963, since we got going, every decade we do significant changes to the content. So I took the CFA charter. I started in the year 2000. So, wow, 24 years ago, and finished in 2002. And really, it's a different product from when I took it now, because so many things have changed. Things such as green bonds, things such as artificial intelligence, things such as geopolitics. You weren't taught that in the CFA program back in 2000. Things like factors, you were just really taught about beta and capital asset pricing model. So factor investing is something new as well, really, since I took it, and that's now in the CFA program. So all the time we're making changes to about 10 to 15% of the content every year to make sure we follow practice, basically. Okay, now finally, before we talk about the enhancements, how can you take the CFA program yourself? One thing to recognize, it's a 3-level exam. But also, you must also get 4,000 hours of what we call qualified professional work experience. That's anything related to investment decision-making or supporting investment decision makers. So remember that chart with the yellow bubbles I showed you showing accountants? How does that count? Well, they generate financial statements that security analysts need to use to value securities, basically. So if, let's say, you work at KPMG or PricewaterhouseCoopers, that also counts. So it's not just being a portfolio manager that entitles you to become a CFA charter holder. You also have to get 2 references to people who attest to your work, 2 to 3 references. And when you submit that along with your work experience, we then give you the CFA charter, and you can put CFA after your name at that point. In terms of guidelines, there are more guidelines on the website, but you can get more details. People often have questions, what counts? And so there's more detailed guidelines on our website, which you can find at cfainstitute.org. The test itself, here it is. This is what it looks like. So the testing rooms have no more than 26 people in them for your test. So it's a beautiful, quiet environment, basically, that lets you really focus. Wooden walls next to you, headphones if you like, and you just focus on the screen. It's a computer-based test exam. And this is what the exam room looks like for levels 1, 2, and 3. So in terms of locations, it's in 440 locations globally now, 440 cities, including obviously in Peru, where we serve your main metro area. The exam itself is in 2 halves for each of the levels, 2.25 hours in the morning, 2.25 hours in the afternoon. And all level 1 is just 180 questions with 3 options, A, B, or C. That is level 1 of the CFA program. Level 2 is 88 questions with options A, B, and C. In this case, in 22 different vignettes, rather. So 22 vignettes of 4 questions each. And then finally, level 3 has got some item set questions. That's multiple choice again, but also some constructive response when you type some answers in to the computer. So that's the format for level 3, but they're all just 2.25 hour sessions. So you'll be in that exam room for no more than 4.5 hours to complete each level of the CFA exam. In terms of what we give you everything you need to succeed on the exam when you register. You get an electronic version of the curriculum that you can log into, both on your computer and your iPad. So you can do it mobile as well. It takes the average candidate, the modal candidate, the most common answer they tell us is they study 300 hours per level. So it's a big time commitment. And people tend to study over 4 to 5 months before their exam, basically. So we offer the exam 4 times a year, level 1, in February, in May, in August, and in November. So that's the way you study for it. Obviously, prep providers are an excellent thing to use to supplement your study. More than half of all candidates use prep providers like Tandem Finance. And certainly that's something we recommend for people who are looking for extra support. They'll offer things like in-person tuition. They'll offer things like video tutorials and so on and so forth, extra questions. And it's a really excellent way to complement your studies. And we find that candidates have more success often when they use a prep provider. So definitely recommend that, and certainly more than half of candidates will use a prep provider. I'm just going to briefly cover the changes to the CFA program for 2024. We have some very exciting changes. I'll just wrap up by talking about what they are. So here they are. There are 7 big changes happening, which are going to add value to the CFA program as you embark on it in 2024. So I'll cover the first 3 with some visuals in a second. The first 4 rather. Let me just cover the last 3 quickly because I won't cover them with pictures. So first of all, we now have more mock exams available for candidates who want them. So that was a big request we have. We're offering a new badge from a new vendor called Accredible, which is a really nice way to demonstrate your achievement on LinkedIn. So once you pass level 1 of the CFA exam and level 2, you got a really nice LinkedIn badge, which proves that you passed the CFA level 1 or level 2. That's a really nice thing to have on your LinkedIn profile as you are recruiting and interviewing with firms and so on. And then finally at the bottom, we've expanded eligibility. So if you're an undergraduate at university today, you can sit the CFA exam up to 2 years before you graduate from undergraduate, which I think is a really good thing to do because then you benefit more from the knowledge, and it really helps if you're applying for an internship. It's a really nice thing to have on your resume there. Now let me hit you with the pictures, those visuals I promised you just to end here. So I'll talk about the first 4 now with pictures. So here's the first picture, focused curriculum. What do I mean by that? This is what I mean by that. So this is CFA program level 1. This is the whole thing about these books here. But you see the 3 books on top. They're basic statistics, basic economics, and basic accounting. Now, many people don't need to relearn basic statistics, economics, or accounting because maybe they're studying economics at university, or maybe they studied accounting at university, or maybe they work at an accounting firm. And so those books on top are not tested on the exam. And so what it does, it saves time. If you've already studied accounting at university, you don't need to study the basic accounting again. So you just study the books at the bottom, which do cover more advanced accounting and so on. So that's a really good benefit, we think, for candidates. So you don't have to relearn things, retested on things you already demonstrated, let's say at university or in your workplace. So that's the curriculum streamlining, which we've just done. Level 3 pathways. Let me talk briefly about that. If you start the CFA program this year, when you come to level 3, you're going to have a choice. So similar to when you do a master's program, an MBA, for example, there are always really nice options to take in year 2. So let's say you're at Carnegie Mellon, you can maybe do something in robotics, or you're at Duke in North Carolina, some medical electives, for instance, and so on and so forth. Or Harvard, you'll do leadership things at level 2 of your MBA. So the same thing will happen in the CFA program. So we've always trained portfolio managers. Remember, it's the biggest job that people do with the CFA charter. But in truth, 2 really kind of hot jobs that people really want these days are working in private markets as a private equity investor or private credit investor, or working in private wealth. So that's where a lot of the growth is in the industry. And so we're offering these specializations at level 3. So you can stick with classic if you like, do portfolio management, or you can choose to say, no, I want to specialize in private markets. I want to work in private equity. Or say, no, I want to work in private wealth. I want to serve high net worth individuals with $5 million or more. Great. We have a private wealth pathway as well. And so the way it will work is there'll be 70% at level 3 will be the same for everybody, the green. Okay. We call it the common core. But then the blue is what you choose when you register. And then about a third of the exam at level 3 will be based on your selection. And so you'll get a different curriculum based on what you choose. And this really helps you specialize and differentiate yourself in the job marketplace. Or if you're looking for a promotion or looking to laterally move into those areas, say going from banking to private equity, this is a really good way to help make that move. I'll move on from the detail. You can look at that yourself. Practical skills modules. So this is a really fantastic innovation we've just launched. And in fact, the first candidates are doing these now with the February 2024 exam window. Basically, when you register for level 1 or level 2 today, soon level 3, you'll have an option to do some practical skills modules along with your exam. So at level 1 right now, candidates can choose between financial modeling, That's building a 3-statement company financial model from a blank Excel spreadsheet all the way to having a balance sheet balance in a 10, 15-hour course taught by a CFA charter holder. Or you can do Python programming fundamentals. So if you've never learned Python, you don't know about pandas data frames, for instance, and why it's better than Excel, it's a great opportunity to learn it from basics. I did all these over the holidays, by the way, in December again. They're wonderful pieces of courseware. No knowledge is required. You have a tutor and you do practical skills alongside your tutor, basically remotely in your own time, 10, 15 hours. With little quizzes as you go through it. It's a wonderful way. If you've ever wanted to learn Python, this is the time to learn Python. And it's bundled, it's no additional charge with the CFA program. So, and you can do both if you like at level 1. It's no additional charge. It comes free with your registration. That's level 1. Level 2, we've got a great course from the former head of training at Morgan Stanley in New York, who teaches analyst skills. So he jokes, he's a CFA charter holder as well. He jokes that his course is what they don't teach you in the CFA program. Well, of course, now it's what they do teach you in the CFA program because it's now a companion with level 2. An alternative is to go deeper on Python at level 2, if you like. You can do Python level 1 and level 2 at level 2 CFA. By the way, we give you both. So you can do both the Pythons at level 2 if you wish, or you can do all 3, analyst skills as well. So that's the level 2. And level 3, I'll let you know a little secret just for Tandem Finance. We're going to be launching a level 3 practical skills module. It's going to launch in May. It'll be about portfolio construction. So it's basically going to go through, the level 3 curriculum and basically have a practical exercise where you construct an entire portfolio from scratch, basically. And then you do optimization, you measure performance, attribution, and so on. So it really goes through the whole of level 3, the portfolio management selection, in a really nice practical way to show how to put the level 3 into practice. And finally, Bloomberg. So Bloomberg is the kind of gold standard in data around the world in finance. It's got the most users of any kind of finance software package. And we've incorporated Bloomberg Training with the CFA program now. So at level 1, for all the 94 learning modules, there's a paired function, unique function. So here you're looking at learning about trading blocks, for example, things like the EU, Mercosur, and so on. And what they do is we show you, okay, great. Here's the Bloomberg function ECTR, which shows trade flow between the different blocks around the world. And so we believe, and Bloomberg believes, the best time in life to learn Bloomberg is when you're studying for the CFA program. It's not examining content. It's not on the exam. It's in the digital curriculum I mentioned earlier, the electronic curriculum that comes with your registration. And so it's a great way to learn Bloomberg while you're studying for the CFA exam, basically. So they're the great enhancements to CFA program. That's coming for level 2 and level 3 as well, the Bloomberg, by the way. So the whole thing will be covered from start to finish as you go through the CFA program. And with that, Paul, that's a very quick summary of what I had to say in terms of the benefits of doing CFA, being a CFA charter holder, and then also the great enhancements we've just launched to the CFA program. So I'll hand it back.
Thank you, Rob. An excellent panorama of the CFA program. And now it's time for the Q&A session. We had a chat for the registrants before, so we have some questions, but please feel free to write your questions in the chat at Zoom, please. And in the meantime, I have some more. I already have some questions. The first one is, Rob, when is the best moment to start the CFA program? The last years of the undergrad studies. In the experience of Tandem Finance, we have a partnership with the undergrad university, and we have a regular course for people around their 25 to 30 years old, and the pass rate of the undergrads is really higher, significantly higher than the regular one. The pass rate of our Tandem course in an undergrad university is like 90%. So what would you say about this issue, about the best moment to start the CFA program?
I feel like you already answered your own question, Paul. So when we speak to CFA charter holders, when I spoke to those 300 people in 2020, if I say, if you could go back in time and do it all again, how would you do it differently? the number one answer is I would have started earlier. And that's true of me as well. I started when I was 23, I think. Yeah. The reason why I think you benefit, it's not just the pass rate's higher. I just think 19, 18-year-olds are smarter. I'd say through life. But we get more experience as we get older. So I think, I think that the youngsters have got study skills. They're already studying, so they keep studying. They're very good at taking exams, I would say. But actually, I think we've done surveys of undergraduates who do start the CFA program at undergraduate. And, I couldn't believe this data when we saw it the first time, but every time we've done the survey, it's the same response. We asked the question, was passing level 1 CFA important to your kind of internship or job search? And 66% say it was pivotal, meaning it made the most difference of all on our scale, the top of the scale. And so, given the fact that one of the big benefits, remember, of the CFA program is signaling, is showing to employers you're serious, showing them you're hardworking, showing them you're smart, showing them you're numerate. It's just an easy way to prove that. And so I think the people with the biggest need to prove that are undergraduates with no work experience. And so I just think it's got the highest value proposition of all early on. But also remember, if you get that internship, hopefully you will, then you've got 10 weeks to prove yourself and make them like you and rate your work. And so I think benefiting from all that knowledge on the desk is really powerful as well. Because when I was 23, I'd already done my internships. I wish I had it, when I was an intern even. So it would have certainly made me more effective. So they're the kind of reasons why I think you should do it as early as possible. Obviously, some people only learn about it at 25, 26. That's fine. They still have great benefit, especially if they're looking to move between those different job roles in particular. But yeah, nonetheless, I think if you can do it earlier, and also, the earlier you are, the less likely that life will get in the way, I'd say, of your studies.
Thank you, Rob. We have a second question about, there are some people that want to switch their career. They are from some finance fields and they want to switch into investment or investment banking areas. Mm-hmm. The question is, does the CFA program help with a career transition to these areas?
I mean, absolutely. That's, I think, what it's designed to do. It's career advancement. So remember those bubbles I showed you, the yellow bubbles, and think about the relevance of the CFA program to all those different job roles. So what that means basically, and think about those asset class coverage, equities, fixed income, derivatives, economics, and so on. It just means it opens doors. Let me explain why it opens doors, though. It's really important to get it. So many people have the CFA charter, 200,000 people, but another 400, 500,000 people have attempted it or they're currently candidates. So when you think about it, if there are 2 million people that work in finance around the world, almost half of them have direct experience with the CFA program. They respect it. They know it's hard and so on. And so if you've passed even level 1, the likelihood is the person looking at your CV or resume will have done it themselves and then or tried it. They're like, wow, I respect this. And so that's how it opens doors, because remember, we have people across all the different job roles. So it's a very practical thing, whether they're looking at your CV resume on paper or whether they're meeting in person. There's a good chance they would have tried it themselves, I would say. So that's kind of how it opens doors. And of course, if you, let's say you work in fixed income, for instance, and you're looking to get into equities or the other way around, then, of course, we teach you a lot about fixed income and equities. And so people respect that as well, that it's the main place people learn about fixed income, for example, and derivatives. And so, the knowledge is also pretty deep, and that also helps increase your option value to move between different job roles.
Excellent. Here comes another one. Is it recommended to have work experience before completing the level 3 CFA exam, or is it enough to have academic financial knowledge?
Well, to do level 3 of the CFA program, to register, you need to already have an undergraduate degree for most people. You can. There's another way to do it, but called professional work experience. But then you need a lot of work experience. So I would say everyone taking level 3 has had typically more than academic work experience. Now, you could have graduated and gone and worked in medicine in theory and do it. Very few people would do that, though. Look, it's a professional qualification, which means that we actually require work experience. You can't have the CFA charter without 4,000 hours of qualifying work experience. So we are a professional qualification. We're not an academic qualification. That being said, it doesn't hurt it's completely fine for an undergraduate to do level 1 and level 2 for that matter. But level 3, yeah, you definitely benefit from having experience at the same time studying for it, I would say. But yeah, you need work experience generally to even sit level 3 of the CFA exam.
Excellent. Another question is, can you please describe about job opportunities of charter holders in the US, Europe? Here in Latin America, being a charter holder is a matter of difference. And in Peru, for example, the regulation requires to have at least the first level of the CFA exam in order to manage investments. What's in your experience? Is this really open opportunities? Does this really open opportunities for work in Europe or US?
I think the reason it does, let's say if you're in Peru and you're aspiring to let's say come to America to work, for instance, then the reason is I'll explain why it does. So we have 200,000 charter holders. And if you look at everyone's heard of Harvard Business School. It's the most renowned business school in the world. Obviously, you've got Stanford as well. Some very good business schools in America. And everyone's heard of them around the world. And they've got big names. And that's great. And so often we find, especially for people coming from smaller markets to places like the USA or the UK, what you may find is that the university you went to in Peru, people may not have heard of it. But everyone's heard of Harvard, but maybe they're not heard of your university in Peru, for instance. And so, but everyone's heard of CFA. And so it's almost like, putting something prestigious on your resume CV, which may be lacking because people just simply haven't heard of the great schools in Peru. And so that's a big plus of doing CFA if you intend to be mobile around the world, I would say. In terms of in America itself, we are the biggest credential on Wall Street by far. There's the FRM Risk, which has 80,000 members. We have 200,000. And beyond that, there are some other smaller ones as well. But it's really the best known. It's the best known. And so that's a good door opener. And in Europe, I would say, in particular, the financial centers in places like London, Paris, Milan, Frankfurt, it's very popular. So again, it's the same reason. It's the same kind of benefit in that if you're interviewing with people, that they will have been through it, many of them, or they have it themselves. And that's how the networking works. And also, when we look at the member base, there's 200,000 people. Half of all members are in North America. So basically, the network is very, very strong. I think Florida has 6 societies. Florida alone, the state has 6 societies. I think Ohio has 4. I don't know how many California has, but basically, there are all these clubs around North America, in Canada as well, with lots and lots of charter holders. And so there's that network effect, which is really powerful. It's bigger than any business school chapter because there are more. I think NYU has 130,000 alumni, and Harvard has 90,000, whatever. We have 200,000, and so it's the biggest club in finance, basically. So that's also part of the benefit. The networking is the best of any network.
Rob, in this sense, the CFA charter is like a golden passport.
Mm-hmm. Golden passport. Yeah, in a sense, it is. Yes, obviously, it's not a passport. But it is a passport of sorts. It's true that when you go around the world, if you go to Abu Dhabi, or if you go to Sydney, no matter where you come from, and you have the charter, you're going to have something in common with people that you wouldn't otherwise have. And so it's a great door. I mean, when you email on LinkedIn, you ping a charter holder, you'll get a response if you're a charter holder yourself. And so that's having another network is really powerful.
Okay. Rob, the changes in the curriculum for 2024 and 2025 have been significant. How often do you make these significant changes in the curriculum? Because as far as I understand, there are regular updates for some topics, but now, I mean, at this time, we have had a dramatic changes for all the three levels.
Yeah, so they're the biggest changes. In 1992, Bill Sharp, the guy that capital asset pricing model, Sharp ratio,
Sharp.
he did some restructuring of the CFA program and into the format where you study tools at level 1 and then asset classes level 2 and PM at level 3. That was him, Bill Sharp. This is the biggest set of changes since Bill Sharp's changes in 1992. And really, when I was studying the CFA charter in 2000, I was an equity research analyst. So I would spend my whole day doing Microsoft Excel models, and I'd go home at night and study CFA. And I was studying accounting ratios and things. And I thought even back then, I was like, wait a minute, why did they not teach me how to do the modeling that I do all day? It was very strange. And so in truth, we added modeling just now, right? The first people doing it are doing it right now for the February 2024 exam. In a sense, it's 24 years too late. So we should have done it 24 years ago, right? And so yes, they're big changes, but in a sense, we definitely made some good moves, I would say. And so, yeah, they are pretty sizable changes. The other thing as well to recognize is, we've always been very good at portfolio management, but definitely there are these new job roles that are certainly attracting more and more people. I remember The Economist magazine in September was talking about private wealth, saying it's the future of the finance industry. We've always taught private wealth since 1963, although now we're adding to that content. So, we always have to keep up with the times. The CFA program, I think it's like a Swiss Army knife, and so we've always got to have a new tool in there. But we always remain the same Swiss Army knife. But we've got to keep changing to evolve. And so that's all we do is evolve with the time space. Python was not around when I started. What it was actually, I think, but no one used it.
It was, but nobody really knew about it.
Yeah, exactly. There's the Dutch guy, right? Yeah. So, we always keep up with the times. And so, it was a big set of changes. But I think really the pandemic urged us on to make those changes because we realized so much was changing with the world. We're like, okay, now it's time to make a big step forward.
How about the ethics part? How often do you review the GIPs and the standards of conduct? As far as I understand, there have been some changes also for 2025, I think, about the standards.
2024, actually. So they went into effect on the 1st of January. So was it 16 days ago? But we hadn't changed it in 10 years. We make changes periodically to the code and standards. We've made 3 big changes this month to code and standards, where we require you to disclose conflicts of interest, for example, or try to avoid them. And if can't avoid them, you must disclose them, things like that. And disclosing your fees, what's your fee structure up front, things like that, which I think are great changes. So, yeah, we do update those. We do update GIPS, the Global Investment Performance Standards as well. And we make changes to GIPS more often than changes to code and standards, I would say. But yeah, we do change them as well. It's done by our advocacy and standards group, not by the curriculum group. But of course, we put it into the CFA program. And remember that table I showed you, it's always got a high percentage weighting in the mix there. And I think, with the growth of private wealth in particular, where people are now expected to be fiduciaries and to basically treat the money like their own money, I think more and more ethics are going to become more and more important. And so I think that's a really good part of the core of the CFA program.
I have a question about why the CFA pass rate have decreased within the time. As time goes by, we have seen a sharp decrease in the pass rate.
In one word, deferrals. So essentially, candidates are able to defer if they wish to a later exam window. That was in the pandemic, we permitted people to defer. We didn't used to permit people to defer, but obviously the pandemic meant we had to do that. It was very popular with candidates to do that. And it remains popular with candidates. We do discourage it. We really don't think it's good for candidates to defer. And so we really try to encourage people not to do it. But some people have life events and they say, no, I really want to skip my booking. So back before the pandemic, we had a solution, which is pay the same price again and book again. And so that's the way we used to do it. Now, of course, we charge a much lower fee to defer. But the truth is, when candidates defer, statistically, they just have a lower pass rate. And so it really is those deferred candidates diluting the pass rate. So when we look at candidates who didn't defer, it's just like it normally was before the pandemic. And so I strongly encourage candidates to stick with the original window they're registered for. If they need to defer, of course they can, but we don't encourage it.
Okay. Rob, I have a question about what are your key recommendation for being successful in passing the exam?
Mm-hmm. Wow, you're asking for the secrets.
I know that there's no secret sauce, but at least some ideas about how to be successful in the exam.
Yeah. Well, the secret is there's no secret, but I think one thing that people don't really understand is that the curriculum is the curriculum and the exam is the exam. And so basically, it's really important to recognize that at the end of the day, you'll be sitting in that room and answering 180 questions. And so reading the curriculum is important, but the most important thing was doing questions, basically. And so I'd say people can often spend too long studying the curriculum and not enough of the time studying the exams and doing the mock exams and so on. And when you do mock exams, it's important not just to do the mock exams, but also important to really look carefully at the solutions. And even if you were correct, to really understand why you were correct and vice versa. So I'd say focusing more on questions. So I think that we recommend you spend about half your time doing questions. But if you leave a candidate on their own, they'd spend only about a quarter of their time doing questions. And so I said that's probably the biggest single piece of advice. Another thing is more personal, which is, and it depends on the type of learner you are, honestly. So for me, I find the best way to memorize things is to write down with a pen and paper as I study the curriculum. It really reinforces learning. So that works for me when I'm studying for credentials. Besides that, it is about the number of questions you do. I would say is the main determinant of success in the exam.
Yes, as I tell my students, there's no free lunch in life. So they need to practice and have a good effort and time dedication for studying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Rob, about the CFA Institute, after getting the credential, what would you say that are the main benefits for charter holders in terms of knowledge? Is there any what comes after in terms of education, of financial education, after we graduate and we finish the whole program?
I think one thing I definitely took from the CFA program was learning how to learn. And so, it's a self-paced, self-study program. So we're autodidacts, meaning we teach ourselves. And that's the biggest lesson of all from higher education, is learning how to be your own teacher, right? It's the biggest lesson. It's the biggest gift, is if you can teach yourself. become curious about things, then you can be your own teacher forever. And so I'd say that to me is a big takeaway, in that it's just the basics. The CFA program is broad and shallow. And so any job role in finance is going to be a lot deeper in whatever you do, equity research or futures trading or whatever it is. It's going to go a lot deeper in the CFA program. So all we do is give you the foundation. And so it's really important to be a lifelong learner, especially your lifespans are getting longer. The markets just keep getting more and more complicated. I was looking the other day at the CFA program when I took it, and now it's like, wow, there's so much more in there. Like, for example, we didn't even realize that volatility was skewed back in 2000. It's like, oh, it's very much skewed. And so that has really important practical implications on valuation. It's just like, wow, you didn't have that in the CFA program. It's like, no, we didn't realize it at the time. And so, it just gets more and more complicated. And so basically, finance is very knowledge intensive domain. And so the more you know, the better you are. And also the beauty of being a lifelong learner is investing is one of those disciplines when you get better with age. Just look at like Warren Buffett, right? And so you get better and better because you see more and more stuff. And so experience really pays. And so having a great foundation is really important. But speaking personally, I got really interested a couple of years ago in climate change, for example. I'm just interested in it, and I didn't understand it. It's very scary. And so I was like, no, I want to learn this. And so I went and did 3 credentials. I did CFA ESG. I did another climate credential from another provider, and another climate credential from another provider. It was so interesting. And that's the kind of behavior that you're going to need to really get ahead. So then maybe you're doing a Python course or from DataCamp or whatever, so these are the sorts of things now the most competitive people are doing. And I think that if you want to kind of stay even, you have to kind of be a lifelong learner because everyone else is secretly. And so to stay competitive, you just got to keep learning. Yeah,
definitely. Speaking about ESG investing, do you think ESG investing is here to stay for long, or is kind of trendy and a fashionable issue?
I think the phrase ESG is trendy and a fashionable issue. Although at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of risk factors, and so risk and reward is just the heart of finance, right? So I think the label is trendy or not trendy, depending on your point of view. Either way. And so I think over time, I mean, the name keeps changing, right? I remember it was in the 90s, it was what socially responsible investing or SRI. It keeps changing name. And then sustainability, and what is it? I guess sustainability is now, not ESG. And so look, the name keeps changing. So it'll have a new name. But at the same time, at the core of it, it's risk factors. And so, it's very kind of basic stuff at the end of the day. I think the risk factors do keep adding to risk factors because there are risk factors we didn't realize. So when I was doing CFA program, for instance, we knew carbon dioxide was a problem, but we didn't know how big a problem it was. Such that now it's like you need to analyze that on every company, right? I think that the label is trendy. The label will change, but the actual at the heart of it's important stuff, and you need to learn it.
I don't know if there is any remaining question from the audience to Rob. Please take advantage of this time. Please feel free to ask. Well, I think we're pretty much done, Rob. Thank you very much for your presentation. It has been really, really very productive and useful for us. And I hope we can join again in any other time. Thank you very much and have a very good night.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. It's been a great pleasure. Any questions, share the materials, and I'm always open to emails and what have you. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.